All right, today we have a 1972, well, super clean, 1972 Pioneer SX6000 stereo receiver. These were manufactured between 1971 and 1973, according to what I found this morning. Now, I think that's probably, that manufacturing year range is debatable, I think. It seems to me that I have found this particular model receiver in catalogs dating back to 1970, and I could not find this receiver being advertised in any of the 1973 product brochures or catalogs. So that 71 to 73 is, I think I found it on Hi-Fi Wiki or something like that, and a couple of other spots. So again, you know, this is just a wag. Let's just say early 70s. The topology, it is capacitor coupled. We'll talk about that in a little bit. 36 watts per channel, dimensions were flashed up. Not a particularly heavy receiver at 30 pounds. For the series information, and I'm just going to focus on 1971 and 72. There was a lot going on with Pioneer in 1971, less so in 1972. So I know this is the Pioneer SX6000, but let's talk about the different series that Pioneer had released to the public in those years. So 1971, if we just look at the top of the line receivers, we had the SX2500, which I've done a review on for my channel. We have the SX9000, which is the top of the line for this particular series. We have the SX1000, right? That was a different series. And the TW was the one they were most likely selling in 1971, the TW. And then you had the SX770. And oh, I forgot the SX990, which the SX990, I take that back. The SX2500, I'm considering top of the line for that SX990 1500 series. So in 71, the different model series or form factors or whatever you want to consider them, they had 4 different series going on at one time of stereo receivers. 1972, you had the 2500, you had the SX9000, and that's when they introduced the 828 or the X2X series. So the top of the line for that series was the 828. So you had a lot of different receivers to choose from. Within its series, you had the SX6000 and the SX9000. They're kind of different receivers, and I'll try to explain that throughout the course of the video. Because with the SX9000, you had a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I'd love to find an SX9000. I don't want to buy one, but I'd love to come across one to work on it and kind of play around with some of the features and the functions of that one. The aesthetics, I'm going to say perplexing Pioneer. The reason I say that is this is kind of unlike any of the other receivers as far as the form factor goes. Now, when we come down to how it works and how it operates, it's very, very, very similar to a 990, 1500, 770, even the 2500, but the 2500 had that auto tuner function in it. But this, just the design of it is a little bit different. The aesthetics are a little bit different. It's capacitor coupled, so naturally you'll have a mellow kind of tube-like warm sound to this. And this is an example of every other capacitor coupled Pioneer I've come across. I like it. Not a lot of low end, but it's a very, very mellow presentation in terms of sound. Not a lot of detail. 36 watts per channel, as mentioned. Operation, pretty easy. I'll get to that in a second, but a couple of things you have to know about when you're talking about connecting things to this, like speakers and RCA cables. So this uses those wonderful Pioneer speaker adapters. It also, oddly enough, has a separate preamp and main amplifier. And I don't remember if the 990 does as well, because this is really, really close to the 990. I would assume the 990 does. If I can find confirmation of that, I'll either flash up an image or I'll flash up something in the video when I go to edit it. It also has a tape DIN adapter, right? That 5-pin DIN adapter for a reel-to-reel. So hookups aren't particularly difficult, minus the speaker adapters. Everything else is pretty straightforward. It does have a center channel, right? So they did center channel things in the early 70s. I think nowadays the application would be to connect a subwoofer to that channel or to that output. I've never done that. I've read that people have done that before though. Serviceability, this is in that beginner intermediate. The reason why I say that is accessing like the amplifier boards can be tricky. I mean, it's a basic capacitor coupled receiver. It's not overly complex like the 9000 is. But just accessibility of some of the boards make it a little bit trickier. For example, the best way to work on the amplifier board on this is to remove the amplifier board, and that's removing, I don't remember how many wires, but probably 8, 10, 12, 14, something like that to pull that board out. I actually had a 770 I was working on once upon a time that I had Frankensteined, and I'm borrowing that term from a forum post on Audio Karma, but I had Frankensteined the board, which basically meant I had to pull the board out to troubleshoot it, and I had alligator clip connectors connecting the board externally to the receiver. And that was a big mess. It was a big mess. So you had all these wires all over the place with alligator clips on them. So for that, I would say this is leaning a little bit more towards the intermediate. But, as far as the circuitry, it's very, very, very similar to the 1000, 990, and 770. If you're looking to pick one of these up, what should you look for? I would say cosmetic completeness, number one. So naturally speaker adapters, unless you want to try to buy some or make some. So that's a big one. A lot of these, when you're shopping on eBay, sometimes you can find them with 2 sets of speaker adapters. That's a bonus. But look for at least 1 set of speaker adapters. And then it's cosmetic completeness. Now this cabinet, I believe, is veneered with vinyl. I don't think this is real wood veneer. If it's real wood veneer, it's in really good shape, but it's really hard to tell. So I'm guessing it's vinyl, but I really don't know for sure. So I would check for the condition of the veneer as well. And then, I don't know how many of these were made. So naturally, if you're looking at knobs and things like that, I forgot to go through the features and functions, which I'll do that in a second. So look for knobs and button covers and glass and, does it light up and things like that. Going back to the features and the functions of this, and I haven't made one of these videos in a while, so I'm a little rusty. You have power on and off. You have speaker. Right now, speakers are off, but you have A, B, C. And then, most receivers that offer 3 sets of speakers will only allow you to run 2. So this has an additional knob position for A and B and then B and C. 2 sets of headphones, bass, treble. Now these are not stepped, so they're kind of free floating. Low and high filter, FM muting, right? And then FM, so this is minus 20 decibel for FM sensitivity. And then you have FM muting on or off, tape monitor 1 and 2, loudness, balance. This is one of those receivers where at the time they were still doing the stereo reverse and stereo normal and then left, right, and left plus right. 2 microphone jacks. Here's where the selector is. You have AM mono, FM auto, phono 1 and 2, which is nice. Auxiliary 1 and 2, and then mic. So you can connect quite a few external devices to this. So you have 2 phono, you have 2 auxiliary, and you have 2 tape. So that makes it really nice. Volume is up here, and again, this is similar to the 990 layout, but it's presented differently with these knobs. And then you have the tuning dial. And you can see the tuner is pretty good. If I'm showing any stereo separation in my basement, that means the tuner is good. Even if it just flashes up there for a little bit, it's still good. If I were to attach just a little piece of wire to this, that station would pull in pretty clearly down here. So going back to what to look for really on this is just cosmetics, and then naturally, you know, what's going on with it. If I remember correctly, there are some trimmers on, and I'm talking about like setting the, I'm going to say DC offset and bias. This is a capacitor coupled receiver, so its terminology is a little bit different, and really the adjustment you're doing is a little bit different, but just for the sake of keeping it, because I think it's like, usually it is, you're setting like clipping and then center channel balance and some other stuff like that. But regardless of the adjustments that you do to the amplifier section on this, the trimmers are known to go bad, if I remember correctly on these. And it's been a minute since I've worked on a 990, but when I started this whole vintage audio thing, I probably worked on half a dozen 990s and then a 770 that was mine. And I love that 770, and I like the 990. I love the sound of the 990. I didn't like the looks. I prefer this to a 990, just aesthetically. So completeness, and again, if it's missing a knob, missing a button, something's gouged on the front, I don't know how easy it's going to be to find parts for these. If it was a 990, you could find those parts pretty easily. Pricing. So if you're looking to pick one of these up, unfortunately, when I did my price check, let's call it this morning, my research on pricing on eBay, there were probably half a dozen sales, but unfortunately, all of them were or best offer except for the parts units. So I'm going both, based on my experience and, well, really more so on my experience and the listed ask prices on eBay, if that makes sense, for those or best offers. But what I have found is when we price these at the shop, so this one is super clean. I have to double check, and this one's actually crossed my bench. This will be I think the second or third time I've seen this one. But as you can tell, the LEDs were changed, and I'm almost positive that this was recapped by another tech that we know and trust. Not that we don't trust, there are a couple of techs that we know and trust. So I believe this has been recapped. I know, and just again, I've looked at it a couple of times and I just didn't pop it open. What I do when things come into the shop, I just kind of give them a once over, make sure they look good. And there's kind of telltale work. You can kind of tell who worked on these things. Sometimes there's a sticker and they use certain components and things like that. So as I check this over, and I'm in the process of checking it over, but I'm almost 100% positive this has been recapped. So anyway, super clean, recapped, $300 or more. So in Omaha street prices, I'll probably put this on the floor at maybe $350, $325, something like that. Once I finish going through it, I'll have a better idea. But more than $300. Right, $300 or more for one that's in really, really, really good condition, been recapped, been serviced, not beat to hell, and or anything like that. A working unit. So let's say this came in, it wasn't recapped. Maybe the lamps. Some of the lamps are out. Maybe missing a knob, a cover, missing the speaker adapters for sure. $200-ish would probably be a decent price. Now that's working though, right? Working, tested, verified, which that's really hard to know exactly how something's been tested or verified, and I'm going by eBay, eBay verbiage. And then for parts, $100 or less. I'm right around $100. So this is a $100, $200, $300-ish receiver. Naturally, you can find sales where they're asking more. I didn't do a price check this morning for one they're asking crazy money for, but I would anticipate someone has one of these out there for a lot. If I can't find one, I'll flash that up. But you never know with vintage audio. Sometimes people they get a little proud of their gear. But this would be an excellent entry-level receiver. I mean, if you were to find one of these in this condition for $300, buy it. right? I've already talked to you about how many devices you can connect to it. So modern listening, you could have a streamer, you could have a CD player, you could have a cassette, you could have a reel-to-reel, you could have 2 phonos. The one thing I don't know, and excuse me while I jump into the screen here. Yeah, there's the 2 phonos. It doesn't say moving magnet, moving coil. Sometimes if you have a phono 1 and 2, one is for moving magnet and one is for moving coil. This does not say that on the back, and I doubt that they are different. So if you were to run a moving coil cartridge, on your turntable, unless it's like a high output one, you probably need a transformer if you were to do that. But that's a discussion for another day, and this isn't the turntable, channel. Well, sometimes it is, I guess. So anyway, Pioneer SX6000, nice receiver, really nice receivers, great entry-level receivers. Again, if I were to have to choose between a 990, a 6000, and a 770, well, that would be tough because I really like the 770. But that's a lower wattage receiver, so, if I exclude that from the comparison, this or a 990, I would take the 990 all day long. Now, a 1000 TD I would take, but not a TW. But that's just me. That's because I'm kind of weird with my aesthetics. things that I find visually appealing on these things. So, great receiver. Can't go wrong with one of these Pioneer SX6000s. So as always, if you like what you see, hit like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.